Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Pemko number 253X4AFG. This is a threshold that is an assembly of threshold components that all conspire together to become a piece of high-performance weather stripping. And what I mean by that is this item is what's called a thermal break threshold. The 253X4 tells us the part numbers that are listed here. And the FG, I believe, stands for frost guard. And the A means mill aluminum finish, which we'll go over in a moment. So you've got this one leg, and you might notice that it's a bit smaller than the other leg. They're not the same size. But when you put those two together, they're going to make a specific size threshold. And the way that you put those together is by using the key stock that is included. And this is literally... Okay, and then we take the other portion and slide it into that key stock. Now what we got here is a unified thermal break threshold. Okay, they are literally intended to be loose like this because they do need to be isolated from each other. The principle of a thermal break, or they may call it frost guard threshold, is that the metals have a discontinuation in them so that the transfer of cold or the loss of energy is interrupted by the disparate material. Metal to plastic to metal does not transfer very well. So this significantly serves to break up the transfer of that cold or the loss of energy from one side of the opening to the next. Now, you may not bump into these thresholds often, and I don't sell them often either. And it might be because of the cost. They are noticeably more expensive per foot, maybe 3 times the cost. But I can tell you that I have witnessed them in action. Chicago, middle of January, on a job site on a Friday, keying locks for a large arm of Catholic Charities. And they, when they build stuff, they build it properly. They have thermal break, not only thermal break thresholds, but thermal break frames as well. And this would have been in the early 90s, and maybe the first time I'd ever seen a thermal break out in the field. And I opened up the door to load the tools back up into the truck, and I looked down and I said, oh, that's a thermal break threshold. Well, I got down and I touched the outside, and it was ice that had been there for weeks, snow that had been there forever. But closed the door and touched the inside of the threshold, and it was amazingly close to room temperature. It's sitting on a concrete slab, so you've got transfer, but the fact of the matter is the buildup of that ice on that threshold was not happening through, on the exterior side, was not happening through the threshold. And that's really advantageous because who can measure the amount of energy, lack of efficiency, when you have large thresholds that are just pulling your energy out of the opening, causing that to turn cold on the inside? Just staggering. It wasn't room temperature, obviously, but it was noticeably warmer than it would otherwise be. A solid hunk of aluminum under a door would be frigid to the touch if it wasn't a thermal break. So at that moment, I knew these are really high performance pieces of equipment. And this same concept, as I just mentioned, they had thermal break frames as well. Hollow metal frames, they are literally manufactured in such a way where there is a separator that slides the two big pieces together. I only see though I supplied the doors and frames on that job, and I know the frames went to the job site welded, so there was no sliding pieces together. Same concept. The inside of the frame did not have any sort of significant temperature, a loss of temperature happening on it. So the 253X4, this is going to be basically a 3-inch half saddle and a 4-inch half saddle that are put together, and when you add the thickness of the key stock, it's going to be 7 1/8. Okay, this is going to be a 1/2-inch saddle threshold, and a threshold like this is going to be really, really typical for that application that I had just mentioned. Exterior door, hollow metal frame, 1/2-inch, 5 3/4 jam depth, 8 3/4 jam depth, 6 3/4 jam depth, whatever you're working with. If you're dealing with a 5 3/4, you might notch this. If you might order a longer threshold and then cope the frame profile into here so that your jam legs can run long. And that's one thing that this same client liked to do, because in the winter when they come and put the salt down, they're not permitting the salt to take residence immediately at the bottom of the hollow metal frame as it touched the ground. A little bit of barrier there with the lip of the threshold, if you get my meaning. If you've got a 3-foot hollow metal door, it's 2-inch faces, order a 40-inch threshold and cope all of this, put it into place and slide it down. You know, that sort of scenario is what was done there. 7 1/8 would be very typical. This is going to be in the A finish. That's simply mill aluminum. This is going to be available in different finishes. I'm going to guess D for dark bronze. That's probably a guarantee. You can probably certainly do it in the G for gold anodized as well. A 253X4. A, again, D, A for mill aluminum, D for dark bronze, G for gold. But they get fancy with this one. B for architectural bronze. You can do the same threshold in solid architectural bronze. Many people will call it brass. So be mindful of that. That's an expensive threshold. You're going to be, that's a big time money. You can, you know, a lot of money per foot. Probably 10 times, 12 times the cost of this threshold. Okay. Solid bronze. You do see those in the world. I don't think I've ever seen a thermal break solid bronze, but you see solid bronze all the time. Here in Naples, there's a historic hotel that's here in town, and those there's many historic hotels, but there's one in particular I'm thinking of. They've got all bronze thresholds. That material has been there for decades, and the reason you use a piece of architectural metal like that for a threshold application is because the outright durability of the product. Okay, onto that mill, you're going to be able to do mill. It'll just come out what the bronze looks like when it's extruded at the mill. You can do a satin finish. You can do a polished brass finish, satin brass, polished brass, oil rubbed. They can do a satin bronze type of process on it as well. That all adds to that 12 times cost for mill aluminum. Then finally, they can also do this in stainless steel, and that's really cool too. If I was going to be doing stainless steel, I would be ordering it from the factory the size that I need. If I was going to be doing architectural bronze, anything other than mill, I'd be ordering it the size that I need it to from the factory. Let them cut the material. They then are responsible for finishing the edge. If you take that oil rubbed bronze and you cut it, well, you're going to have exposed bronze on the side. Cutting bronze and aluminum is no big deal, but cutting stainless, well, that's a different thing altogether. So you're going to want to order that, in my opinion, to the proper size. And that stuff is it's expensive as well. It's 5 times the cost of aluminum, approximately, maybe 6 or 7 times the cost of aluminum. The point of the matter is, thermal break high performance thresholds, you would absolutely think to yourself, yes, that makes sense that I would have this high performance architectural base material, bronze, stainless steel, because of the application. This is not going on an interior application that's heated. A thermal break is used for a purpose. This is listed in the website in lots of different lengths, everything from 2 foot to 8 foot. You can have any length that you want. If you have need for a custom length, order the next longest piece or pieces and indicate in the comment field the net length you'd like for us to ship the material out at. And the reasoning is, well, it's going to save you, again, the trouble of cutting everything. If you had to take this 3-foot piece and cut it down to 30-inch for some reason, you'll eliminate those 2 soldier stacked dimples. You'll have to drill 2 more, then your centers are not consistent down the length. And cutting aluminum is really no problem, but might just be one less thing you have to do. The factory is cutting this to size from long, possibly 16.5-foot length extrusions. They don't care if it's 36-inch or if it's 34. It's all the same. So be mindful of that. They will happily provide it to length. Screws are going to be included. May not be the proper fasteners that you're going to want to ultimately have, but they do get you started. These appear to be 10 by 1.5 Phillips flathead wood screws. Okay. An exterior threshold like this, I'm thinking masonry, concrete sill. I'm thinking machine bolts, lead anchors is what I would think. Pemko can supply that material to us. We can do that separately as well. If you have a dock door and you do heat one side of it, I would encourage you to consider a thermal break, because I can attest, having witnessed it myself, if you're in a northern climate, well, in a southern climate too, in the sense that I can here in Florida, in southern, I'm very much in southern Florida, very south in Florida, in Naples. I can stand on the outside of my door and feel that cold air conditioning just seep out. You'll also notice that when you have air conditioning, you open that door and that humidity at 99.9% comes in, you've got condensation on everything. A thermal break is certainly going to be really great in that sort of scenario. You'll not really have buildup of condensation like you would otherwise. That over the long term contributes to the erosion, the rusting, the failing of, you know, what this is communicating with. A frame, mostly, right? Possibly a door. So be mindful of that. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Pemko products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you have any questions, and this weighs about 1.03 pounds, but just over 1 pound per foot. If you have any questions on the Pemko 253X4AFG thermal break mill aluminum threshold or any other Pemko product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.